with us this morning, Deuteronomy chapter 32. Now, what we're doing is we are talking about God's plan, and more importantly, living God's plan for us as a church and for us as individuals. Now, the whole deal is, while there are a lot of programs and a lot of plans that you could try to implement to make a church better, the absolute best way to make a church better is make the members better. Because you're the church. And so if your life gets better and you get better in living your life in Christ Jesus, then you make the church better by default. Isn't that right? You make your family better when you get better. Okay, so what I'm trying to tell you is take it personally. I know a lot of times people say things, and sometimes they say hard things that might hurt our feelings or make us not feel so good, and they'll say, well, don't take it personally. I'm saying take it personally. Tell your neighbor for me, take it personally. This is for you. You need to take it personally, and you need to apply it in your life personally, because God has got a good plan for you personally. He really does. Now, true enough that plan is attached to a bigger plan, which is also attached to a bigger plan, which is also attached to a bigger plan. So, the better we get individually, the better the whole thing gets. And so that's what we're working toward. And so we set aside a beginning part of our year, and we try to do this every year, to set aside a time at the beginning to plot our ending, to plot our path and our plan, and to get ready. And you know what? We don't just want any plan. The plan you want is God's plan. There's a verse in Proverbs that says this. It says that there are many plans in a man's heart or in a man's mind. I've been reading the Complete Jewish Bible a lot lately. It says it like this: one can devise many plans in one's mind, but the Lord's plan will prevail. And so you don't just want a plan, you want a winning plan. So here's the way you can do it. See, because there are tons of plans you can make in your life that will fail. They'll fall apart, they'll let you down, they'll leave you without. But if you will plan on following and pursuing God's plan, you will never fail. And God's plan for you is good. God will not do this to you. I know I grew up in church, and there was a different idea about God than what we know about him now, because we stopped listening to what a lot of people say and started listening to what God said about himself, and it helped us a ton. See, I used to think God was this big old angry grandfather who was waiting to swat me every time I did something wrong. I sent Jade a link because she heard me say this and asked me. I said something about a song I remembered from my childhood called "God's Gonna Get You for That." Then she thought I was joking or just talking. I'm like, no, I looked it up. I sent her the link. It's still on YouTube today. You can listen to God's Gonna Get You for That. Well, no, God's not out to get you. He's out to get you saved and delivered and healed and free. That's the only way. He's not out to squash you like a bug. He's not out to judge you. And so, we understand God has a plan. But what we also have to understand is it's up to us to participate in God's plan. And this is where people get a little bit messed up, because people will look at God and they'll say, oh, no, there can't be a good God. Even if there is a God, he can't be good. If he's a good God, he wouldn't send people to hell. But do you know God don't send people to hell? God just gives you the right to choose whether you go to hell or not. His will is that none perish. That's what he wants. So the question then is, what do you want? Do you want to perish? The answer is no. I'll help you with the hard ones. That was not a hard question now. If you don't want to perish, then here's what you do. You choose God's plan. This is what you do. In fact, just go ahead and go. I told you to go to Deuteronomy 32. Go ahead and look there right now. Look at verse 29. Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 29. You got it? One of you got it? I'm waiting on everybody else to get it. Deuteronomy 32:29. See, God thinks you need a plan. God thinks you need a good plan, a winning plan. Here's what he says about you. He says, "Oh, that they were wise, that they understood this, that they would consider their latter end." You know what that means? That they'd plan for how they're going to end. The Bible in Basic English says it like this. It says, if only they were wise, they would give thought to their future. If they were wise, they'd give thought to their future. That word consider in the King James or give thought in the Bible in Basic English, actually one of the translations of the word is that they would diligently direct. Now let's put that in there and read it that way. It would mean if only they were wise, they would diligently direct their future. Did you know you can diligently direct your future? A couple of you know. The rest of you, you're welcome. Well, I mean, think about it. If you think, I just have to, whatever the future holds, I don't know. You know, we even sing it in church. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I know who holds tomorrow. That's not really what God intends for you. It's a nice thought, but he wants you to plan. He said if my people were wise, they would direct their future. They'd live by choice and not by chance. They would plan on victorious, and they would plan on winning. They would plan on health. They would plan on prosperity. They would set their plan for these things, and they would plot their course for these things. How many of you know most everything you attempt to do in life is better if you start with a plan? You ever go to the grocery store? I mean, this is just simple level. You ever go to the grocery store without a plan? How's that work out for you? Usually one of two things happens if you go to the grocery store and you don't have a plan. Number one, you end up buying stuff you don't need that sits in the pantry until the church has a food drive, and then you give it out and give it away because you ain't never going to use it. The other thing is, you go without a plan, and you get home, and you realize, man, I forgot half the stuff I went to get. And now you got to either do without, or because you said, I don't have time to make a plan, you got to now spend time you don't got to go get what you forgot to get because you didn't go with a plan. See, it's better with a plan. You ever go out to dinner with your wife without a plan? We get in the car. We start driving down the road. We get to the place where the roads intersect and restaurants go this way and restaurants go that way. And where you want to eat? She said, I don't care. You pick. It's a trap. She said, I don't care where we go. You pick. Well, let's go over to Los Three Amigos. No, we ate that last week. Okay, well, where do you want to go? I don't care. Well, then let's go to Outback. No, I don't really feel like Outback tonight. Well, what do you feel like? Nothing. Just pick. Well, let's go to Provino's. Oh, no, I can't eat that tonight. Garlic rolls? No, I can't do that. Well, what can you eat? Just anything. Just pick. By this time, your ears are turning red. Yeah. What's the problem? You start with a plan. Yeah, I got to admit, there are times I'm tempted like, let's just go home. I don't know where to go. Let's just go home. And this is a universal problem. It seems like all married people do this. Yes? Yeah, so you're not alone. What I'm just trying to tell you is that on every level of your life, it's better with a plan. And here's the deal. See, if you would set out with the right plan, you would save yourself so much trouble. And that's why we want to do this at the beginning of our year. But we also recommend that you do it not just for the year, but do it for the month and the week and the day. See, we've been reading that verse in Psalm 90 and 12. Lord, teach us to number our days so we can apply our hearts to wisdom. See, because your year is made up of a bunch of days, made up of a bunch of hours. And so you want a plan, but what I really want to talk to you about today is maybe how to help you finish the plan. Because, again, we know how it works. People enter the new year, and they're all excited about starting this new plan to get fit, and they're thinking about how they're going to get there. And so they get a diet plan and an exercise plan. The problem is they have a plan to start, but not a plan for continuing. And we do this on, again, it's every level. This is a human nature issue. It's not really a church issue or a dieter's issue. This is how we have to learn to do it. See, because when ultimately it comes down, the only way to succeed is to get in on God's plan. And his plan is a daily plan. And so he recommends that we have daily things. And even coming to church on Sunday, that's part of God's plan. You know why? Because it helps you reset for the next week. Even if you say, well, I didn't get anything out of the singing, I didn't get anything out of the preaching, you know, at the very least you have a remembrance that God is God and you are not, and you are going to answer to him one way or another. So, you know, it just kind of helps all of us reset. Why? Because he's not just after getting us to church on Sunday, he's after getting us to heaven one day. And so he put processes in place to help us all along the way to get to the completion of the plan successfully. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to give you some points of plan, and I'm going to use an acrostic using the P, the L, the A, and the N. If you don't like acrostics, then you just pretend the letters don't line up. Okay? Well, you know, there's always somebody who complains about everything. I don't like it when he uses acrostics. Yeah, I know why, because every time you see that word, you think of that, and then you think, man, now I feel guilty I ain't doing it. I understand why people don't like acrostics, because they stick with you. But that's exactly why I like to use them, because they stick. Forever now, when I see the word plan, I'm going to think about these very things that I'm going to talk to you about. And it's kind of an interesting thing, because, you know, I told you, you don't like what I'm preaching, you have to talk to the Lord about it, because he gives the stuff. You know, I had a completely different idea about this, and I'm like, God, I just want to be clear. I really want what you got. And in 5 minutes, he gave me what normally takes me 10 hours, which is a whole nother sermon. But you could probably preach that one to yourself, because you get it. You know what it is to go through life without asking God's help and suffer because of it. And then when you ask him for help and it's so super easy and you feel like a heel because you didn't ask in the beginning. But I believe God wants you to know some stuff about how to do this, because he doesn't just want you to start off on the plan. He wants you to complete the plan. And so he gave us some clarity about how we might go about that process, okay? And so here's one of the things I kind of want to preset before we actually get into what those steps are, and that is that this is wisdom to plan. I grew up in you know, Pentecostal Church of God type atmosphere where we thought it was ungodly to plan. I don't know if anybody ever thought that or not, but it just seemed like it from what I heard. You know, I would hear them criticize the preacher if he used notes. You know, they would criticize the Baptist folks, and you know, there's a little bit of Pentecostal snobbery there because those old Baptist folks, they had a program for everything in the service, not us. We don't program God out of the service. No, we didn't plan him in either. I mean, you can get in the ditch on either side of the road is what I'm trying to tell you. I have a plan. I don't ever get up here what I don't have a plan. But probably 75% of the time when I get up here, God changes the plan mid-service. Okay? So there is a plan. What I actually find is that the planning gets me ready for his different plan. Do you ever notice how that happens? If you teach or preach, I'm sure you know how this happens. It's that study, it's that stuff that you do in getting ready for your plan that gets all that word on the inside of you so that he can draw it out the way he wants it done. So there's that. So you want to direct your own future. You get to live by choice or by chance. That's up to you. Choice or chance. If you were to back up in Deuteronomy to chapter 29, I think it is, there you'll find where this is basically what God said to them. I'm giving you this information so you'll know. You got two choices. You can choose life or you can choose death. You can choose blessing or you can choose cursing. But you got to choose. Tell your neighbor, you've got to choose. Now, if you don't choose, what happens is you live by chance. Okay? Not choosing doesn't exempt you from the responsibility, and that's why God doesn't protect you from the result. Because you have the right to choose, and it is your responsibility to choose. He put the blessing, he put the cursing, he put the choice in front of you, fully expecting you to choose. So you have to choose. When we set out for this year, we have to choose. And here's what I hope you choose about how you face the year. Choose to please God. Choose to glorify God in everything you do. Choose to put him first and not last. Or, again, so many times we don't actually choose to put him last. We just choose other stuff and we leave him out of the plan and try to work him in everywhere else. And we end up on our beds at night with our head on the pillow saying, oh man, I ain't prayed all day. And so we start to pray, and in 3 words, we're snoring in God's ears. Because we didn't put him in the plan. We have to put him in the plan. And if you're wise, you will diligently direct your future, which means make a plan, live the plan. Right? Say it again. Make a plan, live the plan. Oh, that's good. Make a plan, live the plan. That's what we do right there. We make the plan and then we live the plan. So we're praying, we're seeking God for his plan because we know of all the planning we can make. Proverbs told us that his plan prevails. How many of you want to prevail? Want your plan to work? Super easy. Just pick his plan. That's the way we're going to get there. All right, so we have a choice. We have to choose. We get to choose. So here's what you want to choose. You want to choose God's plan, and then once you got God's plan, you got to choose to live the plan. Here's how we're going to do it. Number 1, letter P. First thing, however you want to say it. The P in plan is your purpose. They tell me this. People who know human nature say that even though people know the right thing to do, they typically won't do it unless they know why they need to do it. So here's a good way you could maybe illustrate that. There are people who know that we ought to eat right and exercise. Everybody know? Oh, preacher, the Bible says bodily exercise profits little. Yeah, that ain't going to work. You didn't say it doesn't profit any. It just profits for a short time. Which, what's that tell you? Keep doing it. But we know we're supposed to eat right and exercise. Right? We know it. But do we do it? You know when people do it the most diligently? When the doctor says. Right? Doctor says, you've got a problem. You are sick. And you've got to change how you've been eating. Then what do? We do what we knew we should have been doing all along. Because now we know why. Right? So you got to get a why. Here's why a lot of people don't succeed in the plan. Because they don't plan with purpose. They don't have a purpose for the plan that reaches long enough or is big enough to make the plan matter. So you got to start with God's purpose. You don't just want to live long. You want to live long and please God in your life. You don't just want to be, you want to be effective. See, this is what matters more than anything else. There are people with money who commit suicide on a regular basis. People with money commit suicide. So, we're over here thinking, man, I got to work for the money, work for the money, work for the money, work for the money, because if I had money, everything would be better. But people over here with the money are proving to us that money is not what matters. Who's not the money? What is it? Well, maybe it's friends. Friends, yes, I need lots and lots and lots of friends. But then what happens when you lose those friends? Oh, now we're miserable. Now we're rejected. Now we're something wrong with us. So people whose friends turn their back on them, they're committing suicide. Why? Because friends aren't the answer. The real answer is purpose. When you are living your God-given purpose, and you know you're living your purpose, there is a satisfaction that comes into your life that's better than money. That's better than friendships. That's better than fame. There's something about the satisfaction of purpose. We know why. The Bible tells us why. What is it? Is Ephesians chapter 2 and 10, where he said, for you are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works that God before ordained that we should walk therein? Does that sound familiar? So here's what we have to understand. God made us and he wired us up for the purpose he wanted us to accomplish. That's what we're wired for. And so you have to start with purpose. Now, living out God's purpose for your life doesn't mean what we thought it meant when I was a kid in church, because we had a bad opinion about God, and we thought, man, if you tell God, I want to get with your plan and live your purpose for my life, he would send you to some remote village in Africa where you would be miserable, but you'd be serving the Lord. Well, that's not the kind of God he is. He doesn't want you miserable. And you know what? If he's just a good manager, and I believe he is. I believe God is a good manager as well as everything else that he's good at. And any good manager knows when you put a person in a place that they hate serving, they don't do a good job there. So why would he do that? If he wants you to do a good job, he wants you to be productive, why would he stick you somewhere where you hate being? It makes no sense. Our problem a lot of times is that we don't know ourselves well enough to know where we would be happy serving. Example number one right here. I didn't know myself well enough to know where I'd be happy serving. But when I begin to live my life with this underlying purpose, God, I want to please you. I want to do what you want me to do. Well, the first thing that led to is testing to see if I meant what I said. Now, the test was not for God. The test was for me. But it came. I'm like, God, I want to serve you. God, I want to serve you. God, I'll do anything to serve you. And the first job came open was repairing a toilet. Somebody came to me. I don't know why in the world they came to me. But they came to me and they said the first toilet in the ladies' room is not working. I said, I'll tell Pastor Thurman. Well, isn't that what you do? I'm on my way to tell Pastor Thurman. And the Lord said, thought you wanted to do something. I did, but not that. What else you got? Nothing till you're willing to do that. Okay, I'm going to do this. I have never been more proud at that point in my life for fixing anything than I was fixing that toilet. I was so proud of me. I mean, I started off really disappointed because I'm like, God, I'll give you my whole life. I'll do anything, and this is what he has me do. So first I was insulted. And then I got past the insulted and just realized, this is a test. I got this. I'm going to ace this test. So I fixed it. And over the next few weeks, every toilet on the property broke. I'm not lying. I am not exaggerating. Every single toilet on the property broke over the next 6 weeks. I fixed every one of them. I heard you. I do. She said he still fixes them. And I do. Because a lot of you are just like I was. When you find out it's broke, you say, I'll tell Pastor Nick. And I don't know what you think about it, but I still think about it like this. I serve the Lord. The Bible instructs us we are to love the Lord with all of our heart, with all of our soul, with all of our might, and all of our strength. That might and strength, or mind and strength, is our abilities. And so, yeah, if it's broke, I'll fix it. And I'll get fulfilled in my fixing. You, on the other hand, you get nothing. Maybe you get a working toilet, which is kind of nice. Just saying. Some of you people are like, I just want to go back to the old days. We passed a little church the other day. Jade and I were in the car and passed a little church. Well, I won't tell you what kind of church it was. A little church on the side of the road. And she said, oh, man, there's a little church over there. I said, yeah, I went to that church when I was a little boy. And I remember they had a trail out back and a little house out back. And I hated going to that church. Just saying. So anyways, I did that thing. And in the process of doing that thing, there was an unintended consequence. I spent a lot of time around here. Because, well, number one, I didn't know really how to fix toilets. I had to learn as I went. And so I spent a lot of time around. And Pastor Thurman comes and he says, hey, we need somebody to fill in this Sunday school class. And I understand now, at the time I'm thinking, he thinks I'm spiritual. The real truth is what he thought was, at least he'll show up. And he keeps showing up. And that's kind of the most important part about teaching Sunday school class is you got to show up. You are never going to, it don't matter how much you know, if you are absent, you are not affecting anybody positively in the room. Unless they don't like you, and then I guess. I'm just trying to find some sunshine here, folks. There's got to be something positive about what I'm saying to you. I had a guy that worked for us years ago. We were in the building supply, and he was the best worker I ever had. He could do. He had tons of talent, tons of ability, good personality. Only problem was he'd show up about 3 days a week. And first, it's like, no big deal, but it just kept happening. So I warned him, I'm like, look, you're no good if you're not here when I need you. And he just kept following the pattern. So finally I fired him, and he was shocked. I can't believe you fired me. I'm the best worker you got. I'm like, when you're here. But sometimes, you need somebody who's here. Well, that's what Pastor Thurman got when he asked me to teach class. He got somebody who'd show up. And so I showed up. Now, I didn't get to teach class because I knew anything. God put me in the place to teach class so I would learn something. I learned much more teaching class than I ever did sitting in one. So some of you who excuse yourself from what God's calling you to do because you're like, I don't know enough to do it, well, that's because you ain't doing it right. If you take the responsibility, you shoulder the responsibility and say, I'm going to do this as unto the Lord, then you are not going to walk into the class unprepared, unstudied. You will get to that class, you will know your material, and you will be the first one changed in your class. Now, mind you, I'm talking about working God's plan and living for God's purpose. See, now, I still hadn't figured out. I'm trying to get to know God's purpose for my life. I still didn't have any idea what he wanted me to do. I'm just doing what came available. And over the process, the jobs kept changing and growing. I went from teaching a kids class to an older kids class. From there to helping teach young adult class. From there, teaching and even preaching out here some along the way. Doing all sorts of things. I still didn't know what I was wired up for. But I'm following God, and I'm taking the opportunities as they presented themselves. And so when God, along the way, he began to talk to me about preaching. I hadn't preached out here yet, but he began to talk to me about preaching. I'm like, I don't really want to do that. I have heard what they say about them preachers, and I don't want to say that stuff about me. And so I said, no. But it's a funny thing about God. He didn't change his mind. You wouldn't know that listening to a lot of Christians because, Christians are always saying, God told me, and then changing his mind. They're like, God sent me here. And then God sent me somewhere else. And then God sent me somewhere else. They're like, God told me to start this ministry. And before it really gets going good, God told me to stop this ministry. No. He said, I am the Lord, I change not. But you listen to his believers, he's like, I am the Lord, and I really don't know what I'm doing. That's the message you get. Because he keeps changing according to us, but that's not really it. We start the plan, we just don't stick with the plan. Now, I'm not criticizing you because I'm just like you in so many of these areas, but I'm telling you that this is something I did learn in this process. So I said to God, I'm like, okay, I will preach the gospel if that's what you want me to do. Just don't ever ask me to pastor. He says nothing. That was the end of the conversation. We never had another conversation about preaching. I started preaching. I hate to think what I was preaching, because I knew so little. Still know very little of what I know I ought to know. But I was doing something. So I'm preaching, and if you're going to preach, you're going to teach. I tell you, a vital part of the process is pray for the people you are going to preach to. Pray for the people you're going to teach to. And here's a funny thing that happens when you do. You can't pray for anybody for good very long without loving them. That's why Jesus said, pray for your enemies and those that despitefully use you. Why? Because the answer for you is not, God, you see my enemies, kill them, like David prayed in the Psalm sometimes. But the answer for you is, God, save them. God, give them wisdom. God, bless them and instruct them. God, heal their hurts so they'll stop hurting other people. The answer is that you love them. Right? And so I would preach to people, but the most important part is I would pray for the people that I was going to preach to, and I would pray for the people I was going to teach to. And then I began to love them, and, well, that's where the pastoral heart lives, in that love for the people, the love for the followers. And so before I knew it, I'm showing up at hospitals for surgeries and showing up at funeral homes to, to just love on people who are suffering and have. Well, that's pastoral ministry. I didn't know it was pastoral ministry when I started doing it. If you'd asked me at that point, I'd said, no, I ain't never going to be no pastor. But I found out by the time I became a pastor, there's nothing I enjoy anymore that I know of yet than being a pastor. See, I found purpose, and it makes it awesome. And that's what I'm trying to tell you, is that if you'll start not with the plan, but start your plan with the pursuit of the purpose of God, when you get there, you'll say, this is awesome. God, you're so good to me. You let me do this and bless me for doing it. I would do it for nothing, but you bless me because I do it. So you got to start with his purpose, right? So that's the P in plan. Your plan needs to have the purpose of God attached to it. When you know your purpose, or you at least give purpose or find purpose in what you're doing, it will give you motivation to keep doing it, and you'll find fulfillment in it. Okay? So that's number one. You got to start with purpose. Number two, it's got to be a lifestyle thing. L is for lifestyle if you're doing an acrostic. It's just lifestyle if you're not. Okay? Your plan needs a lifestyle thing. Okay? See, this is what happens. We see this with people. They go on a diet, right? New year, new diet. $1 billion industry in our country. You know why? Because people won't stick with it. And I get it. I've done some of that myself. You can tell right there. Okay? Don't stick with it. Why do we not stick with it? Because what we do is we get this plan, this short-term goal, and we work toward that short-term goal. And then when we reach the goal, well, then we stop. And because we didn't get a lifestyle change, we go back to the lifestyle we're used to, where we eat anything, right? Seafood diet. See that food? I'm going to eat it. Right? And then before long, we put that 20 pounds back, and we're like, that diet didn't work. I wonder if Jenny Craig going to come out with something new. Yeah, I've seen that new Nutrisystem thing. I'm going to try that next. Ain't none of them going to work until you make it a lifestyle deal. See, that's the thing. Serving God, reaching the goal, you got to make it a lifestyle thing. See, because when it is your lifestyle, when you hit a bump, you hit a snag, you have, something happens and you break the system. If it's lifestyle, it's so easy to get right back on track. Just bounce back up and start going again. If it's not lifestyle, you hit that bump and you stop. You have an episode where you can't help it, but you go off the diet plan. You never get back on. See, following God's the same way. People that make this their lifestyle, you may notice, some of you know this about me, that one of the things I hate to do is I hate to cancel a service. Wednesday night, Sunday, whatever it is, I hate it. Because I know this about so many people. That once you break that pattern for them of showing up every Wednesday, you break it once, some of them ain't never going to get back home. Why? They like the lifestyle of the pursuit of God. Okay? That's why when you miss, it becomes so easy to just get off track. This has got to be the lifestyle. You want to live to please God when ain't nobody looking, not just when it's church time. And if you live to please God when ain't nobody looking, then you'll show up for church time to please God. Now you're saying, I got to show up for church to please God? No. But if you got the want to, you'll take each and every opportunity. Now, some people don't have opportunity. I understand work and all this kind of stuff. But be careful, because I know even though God gives mercy and grace, a lot of times what we do is we give him the last weight in our schedule because he gives mercy and grace, right? See, I can lay out on God, and he won't do anything about it. I lay out of work, and they'll fire me, right? I get that, and I don't recommend that you lay out of work and get fired. But I am saying that you need to have this underlying thing. If you're going to live the plan of God and get through the plan, then you don't leave God last in the weight you give to stuff. You make a lifestyle of pleasing God. People who struggle with recurrent sin often have problems in the lifestyle department. Because what a lot of people do is they don't live toward God. In other words, what I mean is they're constantly facing the wrong direction in their pursuit. They're asking the question, how far can I get to the edge before I fall out of God's grace? How much can I get away with? It's the wrong question. And it puts you facing the wrong direction. You're facing the drop-off point. You're facing the edge, right? Well, if I'm facing that way, I'm likely traveling that way. If I want to not worry about the edge, all I got to do is look toward the center. Look for His will. Look for how I can please Him, not what I can get away with and not displease Him. Y'all understand that there's different? Oh, nod your head or something at me. Tell me you understand what I'm saying. Okay. Because it's a whole different lifestyle. It's what it is. I understand we got rights to do things, but just because you have a right to do it don't mean you ought to do it. The question you want to ask is this a God-pleasing thing for me? You know, we shouldn't be having conversations about, arguments, I guess, about to drink or not to drink, to tattoo or not to tattoo, to pierce or not to pierce. I don't think a lot of that matters. I just want to go toward the center. Somebody said something to me about a couple they knew that was not doing something right, and I had this happen years ago. I had somebody tell me about that. They said, so-and-so come to your church? I said, yeah, they come. He said, well, what are you going to do about this? They got this going on in their life. I'm like, well, I ain't doing anything about that. He said, well, why not? Don't you supposed to do something? I said, no, it's not my part. He said, well, I ain't going to let people come to my church and do like that. I said, well, you send all those you reject down to my place. Tell them you know a church that will accept them with open arms, because we will. And I never mentioned the problem they had going on in their life. I just loved them, preached the gospel. One day they came to me and they told me about the problem and asked me to help them fix it. I didn't have to bring it up. Why? Because in the process of hanging out, they learned a lifestyle of looking to please God. And when you have that lifestyle of looking to please God, you will want to take care of this stuff. That's the way it works. And you'll be glad to do it. You won't feel bad. You won't feel like, oh, man, I got to quit doing this. You'll be like, thank God for setting me free. All right, so you got a plan. Your plan starts with purpose. Your purpose needs to cause you to live a lifestyle. And then number 3, you need to be adjustable. The A is adjustable if you're making an acrostic. So I got my purpose. My purpose leads to lifestyle. My lifestyle needs to be an adjustable lifestyle, which I already gave you some of that. I told you how along the way I thought I was looking to serve God one way. Turns out He ended up taking me somewhere else. My willingness to be adjustable was part of what got me to that place. And you need to know how this works. See, if God had said to me in the beginning, when He was first saying, you know what, I got a toilet that you could fix for me to start your service for me, if He'd have said, yeah, fix this, and after that I'm going to make you a pastor, I'd have ran away and never come back. I'm not joking. I didn't want nothing to do with this. This, that I love, by the way. Deborah actually gets on to me sometimes. She's like, because no matter who calls her when, and they say, you busy? I'm like, no, not too bad. What you need? She's like, you need to tell them you're busy. They think you don't do anything. I mean, some of y'all already think. She just works 3 hours a week. I'm like, I just don't want them to think I'm too busy for them. Right? Because I love this. But I had to be adjustable. A lot of times, this is what happens. People who set out to follow God, to reach the plan of God for their life, they start going out through there, and they'll hit a roadblock and determine, must not be God's will for me to go. And so they'll stop because they're not adjustable. You know, a lot of times when I go home, because I live in East Brainerd and, of course, come down here every day, a lot of times when I'm going home is in that evening rush hour kind of traffic. And so my typical drive home goes kind of like this. I go about a third of the way home, and all of a sudden it's hit the brakes and wait. And you know, the Lord helped me see that this is so much a lot of what people do. They hit these traffic jams in their path in carrying out their plan. They hit a snag, a problem, a difficulty that either slows them down or stops their progress altogether. And what a lot of people do is when they hit that, they just decide not to go. But wouldn't it be silly of me if on my way home every other day I got to the roadblock and decided, well, I guess it's not God's will for me to go home. I guess I'll go back. No, I don't. When I hit the roadblock, I don't decide not to go. I adjust and decide to go another way to get to the same plan. This is what you need to know. You start teaching the class and my goodness, your class may stop showing up. Does that mean you just need to give up? No, it means you need to adjust what you're doing and go recruiting. That's what you do. You got a plan to get people born in the kingdom. You can ask 30 people and they won't show up. Does that mean you need to quit? No, you need to ask 30 more. Maybe you even need to adjust how you're asking. I had somebody one time I really wanted to get here. They worked for us in the building supply. Bobby and I, we talked about it. We paid them to come to revival. I know it's kind of far out there, but you know, show up, we'll pay you. The hourly wage, get to revival. Well, that's worth it. Godly people are better workers. I didn't say Christian people. I said godly people. Godly people are good workers. They won't steal from you. They won't cheat you. Come on. You smile at me. If you smile at me, I know I ain't talking to you, right? Okay, man, I got some smiles now. Some of them you could eat a banana sideways. You just So you got to have a purpose. You got to let your purpose lead you into a lifestyle, and then you got to be adaptable and adjustable all along the way. Because anytime you set out to do something good for God, you will hit resistance. In fact, this is part of how you know what you're doing is making a difference and matter. It's when things come up to stop you in the plan. Don't quit. Take tighter hold of the plan of God. Give it more thought. Give it more effort. Because you're right there on the brink of a breakthrough when trouble shows up. See, you and I can't see into the realm of the Spirit, but our spiritual adversary can. And when those spiritual chains begin to break off of people's lives and situations, that's how he knows to show up. And if we were smart, if we were wise, we would consider and diligently direct the end of this thing and adapt when trouble comes and keep pursuing the plan of God. Keep working for salvation. Keep working to win those people. Because when trouble comes, we're close. You've got to learn to be adjustable. I remember the whole music change. When we changed from hymns and southern gospel to praise and worship, I didn't like it. Had a little guy, worked with him in the grocery store. This is way back when Deborah and I were first married. Little guy, moved up here from Florida, didn't have any friends, decided he'd make us his friends. He tried to drag us to all these contemporary Christian events and stuff. I didn't like it. I resisted for years. one day, years later, had a evangelist show up here. And he started just singing those little love songs to the Lord, praise songs to the Lord. He wasn't singing about the Lord, he's singing to the Lord. I didn't like it. I thought, that ain't in the hymn book. That's just a little rhyme. That ain't even a real song. If it ain't got 3 verses and a chorus, it's not a real song. I didn't like it. But by this point in my Christianity, I was working to live the plan. My purpose, please God. My lifestyle, please God. So in the middle of that situation, I made a decision to adapt. I said, God, I don't like it, but I believe you sent him here. And so I'm going to go along. I began to sing to the Lord. And a wonderful thing happened in me. I found out that within minutes of singing to the Lord and focusing my attention on him and his goodness, I could enter into the manifest presence of God. Now, sometimes in singing Southern Gospel, I'd have to sing 6 different songs before I found the one that put the goosebumps on me. Y'all know what I'm talking about? That ain't even usually God. That's just your emotion. That's why a lot of people could go in and out of the church and never change, because they'd have an emotional experience in the church, but not an encounter with the presence of God. I knew the difference when I stepped into it. This was revival, so, I did it one night. And I could have, I don't remember thinking one thing or another, but I could have been thinking. That's just because I determined to go along and please God. That had nothing to do with the process. It was just me going along to please God. So I came back the next night. That's what you do in revival. You come back night after night. So I came back the next night, and this time I did it again, and it worked again. 2 times still could be coincidence. I'm still not sold on it. I still don't like it. God, I'm trying my best, but I don't like that music. I was honest with him. Ain't no point in lying to him. He knows you. So you don't always know until you go through the experience, right? That guy thought he knew himself, but he didn't. So I wasn't sure at this point. I'm just trying to cooperate. But it happened time after time after time in the revival. Revival at that point, I think we had about a week and a half of it. And every night, except the first 2 because I didn't participate, every night I enjoyed the manifest presence of God. And so I went home. I thought, well, that was revival. I'm going to experiment with this at home and in the car. And it still worked. Now, I ain't telling you you can't listen to Southern gospel music or any other kind of music. Listen, whatever works for you. I'm just talking about me. But I learned the benefit of being adaptable. Nowadays, I don't care what beat you put to it. You can sing it through your nose, and I won't care. Make the words right. Let's sing to God and focus on him and his goodness, and I'll sing along with you, because that's how I know to get in the presence of God. I make my worship about him and not me and my circumstance. Adaptable. It worked. It'll work for you too. You got to hold to the plan. What's the plan? The plan is to pursue God's will for our life. That's the plan. The purpose we live for is God's glory and God's will and the destination, the destiny God has for us. We make that our lifestyle, and then in the lifestyle we become adaptable. We let some change take place because, there are steps. Joseph went from, he ended up in the pit because his brothers sold him out. Then he starts doing good there at Potiphar's house. If he wasn't adaptable, he would have got so heartbroken over the lies told about him at Potiphar's house that caused him to end up in the prison. But Joseph is adaptable. And so in the prison, he just keeps on serving God, keeps on seeking to honor God with his life. And God took him from the prison to the palace. See, that's adaptable. You don't decide not to go when you hit a snag. You just decide to go different to get to the same goal. Right? So you need a purpose, you need a lifestyle, you need to be adjustable. And the last thing you need, the end, you need a what's next. Did you hear me? I said you need a what's next. Very important part of the plan of God. See, because here's the thing. God has got more for you than you are able to handle today. But by the time you grow and reach the plan he's got for you today, he is going to have a bigger plan ready to execute in your life. He's going to have something better for you than you had before. And that's why you can't sit around and look at the victories in your past and long for the good old days. You got to say, oh no, I know that my last day is going to be better than my first days. And you keep pressing for the plan. Hey, how do you know that God has a better what's next? Because in the Bible, his pattern is he wants to take us from faith to more faith. He wants to take us from strength to more strength. And from glory to more glory, right? That's the idea. It's not just from one glory to an equal glory. The idea is from one glory to a greater glory. He wants you to grow up in him. He wants you to become more responsible and become a better servant, to actually become a servant leader in the kingdom. If your gifting is to make money, he wants you to make more money so you can give more money. If your gifting is hospitality, he wants you to have more people to be hospitable too. Whatever your gift is. But you don't ever want to reach the plan. This will put you in the place with the dieters. You know, my goal, my plan, I'm going to lose 20 pounds. Finished with that plan. There's no what next. So guess what I do? Back to eat. Anything I want. Because I didn't have a what's next. You got to have a what's next. I even have a what's next. I mean, I love this more than anything else I've ever done. If and when God, if he were to say to me, you know what, I want you to do something else. By now, I would say, but I don't want to, but I'll do it. Because you know me best. And I trust you best. Some of you trust your own judgment more than you trust God's judgment. Bad idea. Because he knows more than you. He knows you better than you know you. So trust him. Go where he says go. Do what he says do. Understand that he won't always tell you exactly the move to make. Sometimes the way he does it is by putting the open door in front of you for you to walk through. Sometimes it's the opportunity presenting itself. That's his way of saying, do you want this? Do you really want to move forward? So it's up to you. Finish the plan. Here's what I know. I know that no matter whether you have failed in the plan or succeeded in the last plan you pursued for God's presence, I know he has something better for you. I know that if you have fallen down and gotten stuck and forgotten all about pursuing God's plan, God wants you to get up and move forward today. He is not fed up with you. He's not mad at you because you did not finish the plan. He's not mad at you because you may have failed along the way. He loves you, and he is merciful and gracious. And as long as you are breathing, there is hope to get back on the plan and to pursue God's presence. And here's what you got to do. You just have to believe what he says. And when you say, God, I realize what I did wrong, and I ask you to forgive me, then you believe that he is good enough to keep his word and forgive you, and you get right back on. And now you act like and tell yourself to feel like it never even happened because he don't remember. I'm not going to remember. I'm just going to act like nothing and keep moving ahead. And he'll let you. And he'll empower you. You know, I've seen people fall away from the faith. And they come back and so many of them, because of our, the things that we accumulated in our past, so many of them would come from that place and feel like they had to go back to square one and start all over. And I would see them, some people would accept the forgiveness of God, and God would just pour His power on them and renew their purpose immediately. And other people standing around saying, well, I wonder why He didn't do that for me. Well, it's usually because you don't take Him at His word. And you're still looking to pay the price for the failure you made. You're still thinking you got to go back to square one, work your way back up. But according to God, the gifts and calling of God are without repentance. And so once you repent, He just takes you up right back where you left off. So if you were somebody who prayed in tongues, you actually should find it's very easy to pick back up and not have to get filled with the Spirit all over again. You don't have to get born again, Cain, if you want to. It's just not how it works. But you take God at His word and He'll get you there, right?